New from Nuts Publishing, We Are Coming Nineveh. This one I've been excited for a little while, ever since I learned about it. It looks really interesting, and it's got some design names attached to it where I will buy almost anything that they create, given their pedigree. But yeah, so this is uh, a modern war game. It's actually very recent, in the very recent past. So, We Are Coming Nineveh was the name of the operation to liberate Mosul from the Islamic State in 2016 by the Iraqi security forces and coalition partners. And obviously, it was a hugely bloody and destructive affair in the city of Mosul, ancient city, big city, huge population. The cover image here very striking in terms of just the absolute destruction that was caused by this operation, and to try and wrest control of the city away from ISIS. I really like the design on the front of it. It kind of reminds me of Urban Ops, which is another nuts game about urban modern combat. But this game here, and the reason it caught my eye, it caught my eye for a number of reasons, but the reason it caught my eye is because Brian Train is one of the game designers, along with Rex Brennan, Juliette Le Menahez, I believe is how you pronounce that. Juliette Le Menahez, and Harrison Brewer. So we've got a 4-person design and development team here. Here you can see it takes place in West Mosul, Iraq, February 2017. So this game is going to cover. There is a small cat who has leaped up on my table, who should not be there. This game is going to cover sort of the end of the operations in 2017 in the western part of Mosul. So it's not the whole conflict, because I believe the operation took more than a year, from what I recall, from what I remember in the news. And the graphic design I should mention here is Nicolas Roblin. I think he's probably French. So yeah, We Are Coming Nineveh just arrived from Nuts Publishing. Wanted to show you what was in it. Here we've got the rule book, same cover image. It's got kind of like a manual style, like graphic design to it. I should also mention, by the way, this is not the original box. My copy arrived like mangled. It did not do well in shipping, and Nuts was very kind to very quickly from France get me a new box. So hats off to the customer service there. Here is the rulebook, full color, dual column, talks about game components and concepts. We've got several different types of sort of interesting, unique things going on in this game, and we'll show you that when we get there. But there's a little bit of getting up to speed. It's not a long rule book by any means. In lots of examples here, as you can see, it is a block game, an area block game. But there's some interesting stuff with the victory conditions, from what I understand. Yeah, it's not a long rule book, so it doesn't look like particularly too complicated. We get to page 12, we're up to special rules, and then we get to victory on page 14, and then I believe here, yeah, we've got optional rules on page 16. So 15 pages of core rules, another half page of optional rules, and then you've got how to play solo, which you can do solitaire play. Here's a game component summary. We've got counters, we've got blocks, and the blocks are going to represent different units. It looks like a really cool game. There is a design notes booklet from the design team talking about the history of this particular operation. Some maps, which is really cool. These maps are actually provided by the Institute for the Study of War, which has been doing a lot of really good content online for the Ukraine conflict. And so it's really cool to see them here in a professionally published game as well, because they do a bang-up job in terms of terrain coverage and conflict. The Battle for Mosul, some design notes, why they chose blocks and area movement. I'm not a big I'm not a big area movement guy. I do like block games. So this is a bit of a departure for me, but there's so much real interesting about sort of how this game plays. Here we've got 2 dice, black and green, and we've got blocks and wooden pieces as well. Yellow, green, some of these round tokens, which I'm very curious what those will be. I mean, we might see when we see the stickers. We've got a whole huge host of black blocks here, and I imagine these are going to be the Islamic State forces. We've got 3 packages of cards. I'm not quite sure if it's card-driven or card-assisted, but they look like event cards. These are capabilities. And obviously, Brian Train worked on this, and he is a great designer in the modern combat space, modern conflict space. Here's headquarters. Military Council. Looks like there's a bunch of different types of cards. Sorry about the focus. Casualties. Interesting. Deck of cards for those. Event. Brian Train has a lot of really interesting mechanics in his games. Brief Border Wars being an example. The District Commander series. But my favorite game of his of all time is is A Distant Plane about Afghanistan, the coin game. This was still my favorite coin game. I think it's probably one of the best. And so I will gladly pick up and play anything that he designs. And I see him a lot up in Vancouver when I go to BotosCon. He is Canadian. Here is a sheet of counters, disruption counters. Looks like tunnel markers, perhaps, a jihad marker, and maybe civilians. These are double-sided, really nice stock from Nuts, as you would expect. We have got stickers, it looks like, for blocks, maybe. HQ stickers, collateral damage, time. You know what? These must be the yellow markers. So these stickers, so we've got 4 yellow blocks, 4 yellow stickers, and then the round markers. So that makes it easy to figure out what those go on. And then we've got another sheet of stickers for the units. Let's take a look at those. I'll bring those in close. So here we can see the blocks rotate. It looks like it's maybe a modifier or what they hit on, maybe a Columbia-style block system. Looks like we've got some artillery potentially here, some air support, some cover maybe, IEDs, all the types of things you would expect to find in the modern era of Middle East combat. All right, let's get the map open so you can see it. It's fairly well done, and it showcases the city. All right, so here is the map. Really like the color palette here. It is sort of a white background with sort of the brown color of the desert in Iraq that you would expect. Here we've got the old city of Mosul where a lot of fighting took place. Looks like we've got the highways around the city, and then various districts as we zoom in here. It almost looks like you're looking at it from a plane or like an aerial mapping software with the way that the buildings and the sort of here, this is a textile factory. Here's a power plant in Al Mansour district, Wadi Hajar. So, obviously I don't know what the geography of the modern city of Mosul is like. Here's actually the river, the Al Furat River here. I don't know what the geography of the modern city of Mosul is like and how this represents it, but I really like the look of the graphic design. You've got things like the stacking limit in different terrain up here, supply source indicators, and then you've got a whole bunch of tracks over here. This looks like the historical casualty and collateral damage track as the operations continued. I do know these are relevant to victory conditions, so it looks like you'll put a block as you go up, basically. But I really like the way that there's like a graph showing how it gets bigger as the conflict goes along. Here we've got the turn track. So it looks like we've got turns are 2 weeks long, except for the first one, which is all of February. The game looks like it can go as far as August. And then we've got the current event spot, and then we've got a space for priority cards. I've undone in the ISF priority card, Iraqi Security Forces. So I've undone the card decks to show you just how many different types of cards. So first of all, we've got each side has what's called core units. So this looks like they're going to be the units that each side will get. So we've got headquarters, we've got leaders, veterans, militia, IEDs, large IEDs. Here we've got the 9th Armored Division, Counterterrorism Service, Emergency Response, Federal Police. So it looks like these are going to be the units that are going to maybe start the game. Not entirely certain. We've also got a deck of what's called additional units. So I imagine these can come in over the course of the game. Reinforcements, hasty attack, popular mobilization. And then for the Islamic State, we've got some technicals, arms cache, more IEDs, an IED factory, mortars. So it looks like these are going to be the units that you bring into the game. Now, the Islamic State also has this military council deck, which I'm not sure what it does, but there are 3 different things on here. And they give you some sort of effect or possible conditions. So unclear how these are going to play into the game, but it looks like there's a lot of options for what you're doing here. And then we have got a deck of what are called priority cards for each side. This is the victory condition. So I believe, I haven't looked totally at the details of this, but each side is going to secretly choose their victory condition from amongst 3 possible things: time, collateral damage, or casualties. And that's where these 2 tracks come into play. And I believe you can choose a different one than your opponent. And based on sort of how well you achieve that objective, you will win the game. So there's really interesting sort of fog of war here where you're not quite sure what your opponent is playing for, and they don't know what you're playing for. So I'm excited to see how that works in practice. Really interesting design, of course. Brian Train is really good at that. We've got capability cards for each side, so we've got a deck for each. The capabilities would be things like air support or attack helicopters. What else we got in here? More coalition support from the allies. Human intelligence, signal intelligence, rules of engagement, coalition forward observer. So really interesting. Like they all have unique effects potentially. Maybe some die rolls involved. Yeah, looks like the Islamic State. We're gonna have the Grand Mosque of Al Nuri, mines, escape plan. What else we got in here? Guerrilla training, snipers, improved infantry, chemical weapons. Yikes! Makeshift drones. Enhanced command and control, suicide vests, man pads. So, all the stuff that you would come to expect in modern conflict. And then finally, on top of all of that, we have a giant deck of event cards. Now, I'm not sure what there's different numbers on the backs of these. So, like, they're either 6 or a 1, and I'm not sure what that means. But if we flip these over, we'll see that we've got different events. And I assume that event is going to go up here in the current event. So it looks like the events will affect the game globally. Yeah, so it's like if this can happen, then you get this effect. It's really interesting. And these are, I presume, all historically based. I like the photography here. So this allows the Iraqi security forces player may immediately move a 9th Armored Division unit into an eligible zone. Popular rallies. I mean, there's just a ton of these, right? Fighting devastates the old city. There's 2 of those. If the combat's in the old city. So unclear about how all of this works together, but I am excited to dig into this, and I got some stickering to do before I can get it to the table, but I have a friend who was in the Army and who was serving in Iraq, I don't know, 15 years ago, 17 years ago, something like that, and so I'm interested to play it with him to see what he thinks of the history here. So anyways, that is We Are Coming, Nineveh from Nuts Publishing, newly released. Looks like a great game. I will hopefully have some sort of after-action report about it after I play it, but the plan is to play it fairly soon and report back. So thanks for watching.